I was really happy this year. Some of my birthday cards came with glitter on them, and then you flip it on the back and it says it's cellulose, that it's not plastic. So like, yay, no microplastics.
Oh, well, your friends know you, don't they?
Apparently. I was very happy. Even if you're not bothered about microplastics, glitter goes everywhere. And then you're like finding glitter years later, and you have a piece of glitter on your cheek, and you only had one glitter card.
Yeah, it's like, I don't know, it's like a virus.
Yeah, when people think, why should I wear a mask? You just imagine that coronavirus is that glitter card. I was so surprised when I finally came over to England after reading the Harry Potter books, and I was like, this is just normal.
What do you mean? Like, you thought that it was...
Well, in the book, nothing in the book was how it is in America. Schools aren't set up like that. There's no such thing as houses. There's no such thing as like separating schools off into sections like that. Boarding schools are really rare. Like, it's just not something that we tend to do. Then there was the whole like Diagon Alley and the little street and the pub and the cat. None of that. Don't really see much of that in the US. That culture just isn't there. Those little shopping streets like that.
You don't have castles either, do you? So,
yeah, I definitely don't have castles. And it was just like all of it. So it was brand new and really magical and really cool. And then when I came over, it was like, you know what? I don't think she made that up.
Not the sort of school I went to, by the way. But I think maybe if you went to a posh boarding school, it might be... It's reminiscent of a lot of it. But yeah, I just want to, for the record, say I was state educated. Because you get a bit more credo, you know, if you come from less... Yeah. I can't pretend I'm not middle class, but I'm first generation middle class, not gentry. So that's what you've got to do in comedy. If you've got one working class relative, you've got to latch onto that and say, oh, see, I come from nothing and I've worked hard. I'm not saying anybody that's on like TV or anything isn't proficient or decent or good even at what they're doing, but a lot of it's like either fortune or being what someone's after at the time, you know. Like, but we all like to think that we all did it all by ourselves because that's a better story.
Because that's what we were fed when we were kids, wasn't it? That if you work hard enough, you can do anything. And it's like, well, yeah, if you work hard and then have the best luck in the world, then you can do anything. Because it's all, like, I would never be here if I'd never met certain people. The end. So it has to be luck. Luck has, or whatever you want to believe. But, you know, something like that.
I mean, I only can sort of say it from where I see it. I've seen some really, really good young or new comedians, not necessarily young. And it just doesn't, you know, for some reason it just doesn't happen for them. They haven't got a plan B if plan A doesn't work, and not enough people were into plan A for it to work out. I gave a relatively famous comedian a lift to a gig a couple of years ago.
Oh.
What was interesting was he was saying when he was starting off, he'd do like every other gig. He would like just the audience would just be like, "What the hell's this? We're not going for this." Like this is, you know, because if you didn't know who he was. Yeah. And again, I was saying before, like, the whole audience kind of needs to go for... You never go to a gig and, like, half the audience like you and half don't, and it's a good gig. Because there's too much discomfort in the room, you know, like, so he just do so many of these shows where the audience didn't quite know how to take him. But he did enough gigs where everybody kind of got it and thought they'd seen something special that he got a name for himself. And he's never really done the circuit, you know, like I do the circuit where you have to not die that often. You have to you have to adapt yourself to as many situations as you can if you want to make a proficient living. But he didn't want to do that. He said, I just wanted to do what I wanted to do, and enough people liked it. And of course, he's a good comedian. He's a very good comedian. But there's another story where there's another guy that did the same thing,
and it didn't work.
It just didn't work because he just died too much. Someone said, "No, he's a liability," and then he just had to stop. I know some very, very good writers. That there's a guy in Leeds that is quit now, but he was really bleak, but he was such an amazing joke writer. But if the audience didn't go for it, he had no way of couldn't bring it back,
right?
You know, and he just lost so many bookings because sometimes it didn't work, and people booking clubs. I mean, about 20 years ago, you could book a weirdo and put them on your comedy night, and it would be fine because people would just be like, "Oh, it's the '90s, it's weird."
It's the 90s. It's fine. It's the 90s.
But now, because of TripAdvisor, basically, if someone has an average night out, well, everyone's going to hear about that, aren't they? So it's going to be, oh, the middle guy was weird and ruined our night. We didn't come out for this. So people became very safe, you know. People are just like, we've got to make sure that we book a lineup that will be solid and dependable more than interesting sometimes.
Yeah, so you've got to play, like you're saying, it is a bit of luck, because if you don't, like you're saying, if they just stop having you or whatever, then that's that.
Unless you do, I mean, there's other routes, if you showcase yourself well in Edinburgh, that you don't have to do it one way. Some people just have a comedy career from doing, well, believe it or not, from doing podcasts and stuff. So there's not one route, but there is always a bit of luck involved in it. I mean, I feel like some people are so talented, you'd think that they'd probably make it no matter what you'd think. I mean, I struggle to think of a world where Bob Dylan didn't make it.
Yeah.
But have you ever seen Inside Llewellyn Davis, the Coen Brothers film?
I haven't.
It's good. I like it. But it's just about like some contemporary of Dylan that they've just made up that just like it all goes wrong. And then at the end, he leaves the club, and Bob Dylan just starts up his song, and it's sort of like, well, it was this guy, but maybe it could have been this guy. You just,
Yeah, well, I just think like a lot of the things, when people say like, oh, maybe it's not luck, maybe, or maybe not all luck or whatever, and I think, well, maybe, but on the flip side, so much else is luck. Even if someone is absolutely fantastic at whatever they do, what's the chance that they were born into a family that didn't need them to work more? If you're a teenager or something and you were born into a family that's struggling, first thing you're going to do is to go and get a job, and then that's it. You don't have time to practice or put effort into whatever you're really good at because you're spending your time working at Denny's or something. I don't know. You know what I mean? And all of those kind of things start to play into what I would consider luck. How you were born, how you grew up, what life experiences you've had that made you make certain decisions or not make decisions. As well as just the fact that, what's the chance of if you got on that bus or didn't get on that bus because you missed it, or you were late, or you dropped something, or you spilled milk, or you didn't spill the milk, and then, then there's the whole, sliding doors style, how your life changes.
Someone tweeted quite a good joke the other day, which was, I wonder what would have happened to Gwyneth Paltrow's career if she hadn't made sliding doors.
There you go.
It's a good joke, isn't it? I don't know who did it. I'd love to credit whoever it was, but it's a good joke.
That's great. I love it.
But yeah, I mean, that's why a lot of people you see on TV in any of the arts, a lot of them come from quite privileged backgrounds just because they're able to work for free more than other people.
Exactly.
If your parents say, oh, well, you don't have to worry about rent for a couple of years, you go and do what you want, then there's a big leg up, isn't it?
So I would like to be quite blunt with the fact that my parents have declared bankruptcy multiple times.
Also, you've got to be lucky to be born in a time when... Yeah. I mean, imagine, being an amazing footballer, or, if you were Diego Maradona and you were born 500 years ago, it wouldn't matter, would it? You'd still be farming cattle or whatever the hell.
Yeah, you'd be playing with the actual pigskin.
yeah, it doesn't matter how good you are, but because you happen to be born in an environment and in a time in human history where he was able to utilise those talents.
Yeah.
In the Stone Age, they'd be like, no, go hunt and gather some more berries. Stop balancing them on your feet.
What are you doing? Stop that. No, I do think that's true. And I think we are all quite lucky to be in the day and age that we are in now. But in my opinion, I do think that the generation just before us who were able to buy a house at 19 with, £20,000 or something and buy it outright, that generation definitely had it good in some ways, maybe a little bit better. Plus, they weren't all worried about climate change and dying,
Sometimes I feel like one of the reasons I don't want kids is because they're going to have to live in the future. And, I'm worried about the future. Whereas if I could have kids and then we could all time travel back to 1962 or something.
Yes!
I could be like, well, I can prepare them for this. I can be like, yeah, don't get too attached to JFK.
That's not going to last.
When they're 1 year old or something. But I feel like I can prepare kids a lot better if I know what's coming.
Yeah.
So it was your birthday, wasn't it? Are you talking about that?
Yes, it was my birthday on Tuesday.
So we'd love lots of comments from listeners just to boost our interactions.
So I like my birthday. I know a lot of people are really hesitant, they really don't like their birthdays. I don't know if you're a birthday person. Do you like your birthday?
Not especially, but it's not a black and white thing.
Yeah.
What I do, I'll let you talk again in a minute, but I've stopped trying to think about birthdays as being landmarks, and I prefer as age to be a sliding scale. I'm on a sliding scale of aging, hopefully slower than the numbers suggest I should be.
Yeah.
And then I'll die.
Jesus.
That's I don't want to be putting numbers. I'm quite comfortable being in the 30s. I think I was kind of born to be in my 30s. I think
you were born 30.
Pretty much, yeah. I think. Well, my girlfriend, she says that I have reimagined my whole childhood as if I was some misanthropic, old before my time figure that never really liked being a child and appreciated the joy of childhood, and just always was a cynical sort of like I'm above this kind of thing. Like I'm not playing with toys because I rather think about existentialism and read Camus at the age of 11 or something. But probably wasn't like that. But I like to imagine that my childhood was like that. I think I've whitewashed I think basically what I've done with my past is I'm like Stalin. Basically, I've just like I just cut my own head out of photographs from the past in my own mind. I'm like, I'd rather imagine myself to be the child that I would have liked to have been, the misunderstood sort of child that always was an artist, but no one really appreciated him like, growing up. But now that he's in his 30s, people come round to him.
Yeah.
So I think the 30s have been pretty good, but I don't know what I'm going to feel like when I get into the 40s. I'm like,
I don't know. I've just kind of given up a little bit with numbers. I just think like, I feel good, so that's all that matters, right?
Yeah, of course it is.
And, and I think like a lot of people, they really attach a lot of judgment to numbers as well, which is why I try not to share my age very often. If someone is a certain age, people assume certain things about you, whether that's old or young or somewhere in between. Because I moved to England when I was 17. And after the first year, I had all my visas sorted. And then I was working when I was about 18. And then I remember sitting in an office room. And there was this woman, and they were kind of having a bit of a chit-chat at the beginning of the meeting before, everyone had arrived. And she was saying about how her son, who was 17, didn't know how to use the washing machine and didn't know how to wash his clothes, and had called her while she was on holiday in Florida to try and find out how to use the washing machine to wash his clothes. And then they were just like talking about it like it was the most normal thing in the world. And I was just sat there thinking, you're so dumb. That's your fault. That is your fault that your son doesn't know how to wash his clothes at 17. I moved to England when I was 17. You want to know when I was washing clothes? It was definitely not when I was 17. I mean, a little part of me knows that I matured quickly because I had younger siblings and I needed to. But on the other side, it was like, blooming heck. I mean, you can't sit there and talk about, kids these days. According to you, I'm a kid these days, and I'm quite offended by you talking about us like that, because I can definitely do my own laundry. But round about then, I gave up with numbers. I just said, tosh this is stupid, because people just judge you when they know how old you are, whether that's young or old. And I just thought, you know what, you can think whatever you want, because it doesn't make a difference, because I know who I am.
I'm still guessing. I don't want you to be too much younger than me, that's all. I don't want to have a teacher that's too much younger. I'm not taking advice from someone that's years younger.
Well, see, there you go. Already you're judging me. Also, it's a little bit different, obviously, being online, but I am quite short, and I'm not, I'm kind of petite as well, which I was also premature, so I'm just tiny. I just didn't get a chance to grow. I was ready. I was just like, bing, let me out. So I'm small, but I think that gives the impression that I'm younger than I am as well. I mean, I'm happy about it. I don't mind looking young, but I do think that sometimes it's
better than the other way around, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
I remember kids at my school, like 15 years old, going bald and thinking, whoa, like they didn't even get like a chance to enjoy hair.
Yeah, yeah.
You just get lumped with a body, you have to deal with it, don't you? But there's no warranty or anything on it. You can't take it back after like 10 years and just be like, the hair's not.
You can just take it back and say, actually, I've decided that I don't like the hips on this body. Can I please have a different hip? Thank you very much. One that lets me do splits. That would be great.
That's the other thing about getting old. Is I'm quite happy to be in the 30s now, because I also feel sometimes I sort of tell myself, well, I'm probably at the peak of my sexual allure. I mean, that's a depressing thought in some ways, but it's not going to get better, is it? Like, I like having hair, for example. I feel like that starts going.
But it might not. There's some people don't ever lose their hair. Like my father's got a massive head of hair. Always have, really thick, and it's grey. It's old.
I'd be happy to go grey, but I just don't want to lose it. Yeah. I think I'll get a hair transplant if I can afford it. And I will do it. I'll do it. It's important to my image. Like,
I know, but on the flip side, do you not think it's like just something to learn about growing old? I mean, I'm not saying we should become like feeble or something. I'm not saying that you should let yourself go.
I'm not going to embrace that side of it. No.
I know. But I mean, like, certain things we really don't have control over.
Yeah, of course.
Maybe.
Because when I started getting into, I'm worried that we sound like we're doing the most bourgeois podcast in the world. But one of the big anxieties that I used to mainly have was just terror about death and the future and that sort of thing. And so the whole like living in the present moment and just being in the present moment and stuff is quite an important mindset to train myself into. But part of the problem was I'm quite happy to live in the present now because I'm all right now. But am I going to be all right with myself in the future, or will I just adapt when I get older and just think, oh, well, because you do just adapt, don't you?
Yeah.
You know, like when you get bad news or a change in circumstances is coming around the corner that you didn't, like a pandemic, for example. Sometimes the thought of it is a lot worse than when you're actually dealing with the things. I mean, it often is.
Yeah.
We're quite adaptable now. I almost feel like a bit of apprehension about going back to normal in some ways.
Yeah. No, yeah, I am. Definitely.
But I will adapt, I'm sure. Like when it happens, I'll be like, just 2 weeks, I'll be fine.
Even now, just like going to the shops, the thought of going to the shops kind of bothers me. And then when I go, it's all right. It's fine. But it's like thinking about it, it's like, ooh. But for me, like I think I've said before, my problem is time. How long will it take me? When will I come back? Will I have time to make lunch before this? And then this happens, and it's all time oriented. Like I will literally sit and feel anxious because I know something is coming up in 10 minutes, even though I'm completely ready for it. Everything's set up, everything's fine. I have nothing left to do. I've got all my, all my notes, wherever I need, everything's fine. But I'll still feel a bit like, ooh, I've got that thing in 10 minutes.
Did you feel like that before we came on?
Yeah.
I'm so sorry to add to that.
It's getting easier with you. It's getting easier because I've kind of told myself it doesn't matter if I'm 5 minutes late with Peter.
Right.
Even though I hope you don't mind. I keep thinking, like, he said he's got nothing on, so if I'm 5 minutes late, it's fine.
I've had nothing on. I would have had something on tonight if I was allowed, but I'm not allowed. Yeah.
Hold on just a second. Andrew, it's okay. It's just outside the door. Yeah. No, outside. Yeah, go on. Quick. He's doing the cartoon sneak.
Like Shaggy or Sneaky.
Yeah, like Scooby-Doo, exactly. Okay. I think he's gone. Anyway, so you were saying.
Yeah, I was a bit wobbling in the balance the other day, and I thought it's not that I thought I'd got away with it, but I thought I got away without you mentioning the fact that someone was a bit wobbly, and I was like, no one needed to know that.
Well, it's funny that you say that, because I thought you would mention that. I said it, and then I thought, who's going to mention that next time I talk to him? But it wasn't that you were really wobbly, because there was someone else in the class that I will not name who was more wobbly.
Okay. Yes.
So that is why I mentioned it, and then there were other people that were just a bit less wobbly than you, but still wobbly. There was a range of wobbles going up to someone higher than you in the wobble scale. So I did mention it because I wanted to mention it, but I did think that I bet he's thinking I'm talking about him because I noticed you were more wobbly than you normally were.
Because I did one side pretty well, actually.
Yeah.
And I think I got overconfident when I was doing the other side. I was just like, nailed this. And, it's like someone once told me that if you told a bird that what they were doing when they were flying was impossible and they started thinking about it, they would fall out the sky.
Yeah.
And I think, it's kind of the same thing, isn't it? It's like,
I agree.
When I was starting to like do arm balances, like crane and stuff like that, as soon as I was thinking, I'm doing it, that's when you'd fall.
I think that if the real key to being able to balance quite comfortably, other than like generally having good muscle engagement and that kind of thing, is what you're thinking about. If you think basically at all, you'll wobble. You have to really, really only think about either what you're doing is in like pressure in the hands or counting 1, 2, 3. That really helps to slow the brain down when you're balancing. But if you start to think about anything else, even like you're saying, even just thinking about, oh yeah, look how good I am, I'm doing it, then that's it. That's it, you fall. Definitely.
I think about the engagement in my core and stuff like that, focusing a little bit there in a balance. I don't know, for some reason I feel a bit more focused for some reason. That makes any sense. I worry that I'm really terrible at technical explanations. Because the thing is, I'm an artist, so I live on instinct.
All right, okay.
That's what it is. That's
something you said though made me think. So we were saying about it's balance is hard when you start to think about, or when you overthink about it. I wonder if that's the same with other things. So like, we all basically try to find a balance in our lives. I wonder if that starts to mess up when you try to overanalyze it as well. Like, should I have 20 minutes of reading my book today or an hour? It's like, maybe that's the problem.
It's like driving a car, or once you know you can do it, you're not really thinking about the doing of it, you're just doing it. Like your brain goes into some sort of autopilot thing. You can drive a car and do other things. Obviously you concentrate on the road, but something takes over, and you don't have to think about the mechanics of doing it in the way that when you were learning to drive a car, you have to think about absolutely everything. And it's the same when you're learning how to do stand-up comedy, because you're thinking about the jokes, you're thinking about the reactions and things, but once you know your set, you're just doing it on autopilot, and then you're thinking about other things while you're doing it, because you know how to pace everything. You even know where you'll go next if a bit didn't quite work. You just think, oh well, I'll drop the next bit and I'll do this bit because this will save it, and blah blah. And that's all automatic. But when you start, you don't have all these motor skills in the back. And imagine a lot of yoga poses perhaps just becomes an instinctual thing that you don't have to think about the placement of things. You can just go from one thing to another a little bit more.
And actually, that's a bit of a big thing. Like, the more you practice, that's something that people try to emphasize. Like, you'll have teachers that say, oh, do it as if it was your first time. And what they're just trying to say is, like, really put your attention into it. Because that's one of the things about yoga, isn't it? That mental connection between the mind and the body, and, like, really focusing on the body. And the more you practice, the harder it gets. Not the easier. That part gets harder because it's really easy, or not easy, but easier, I should say. It becomes more instinctual how you do the poses, what muscles engage, what muscles don't engage. And if you don't think about it, you can just float through them and your mind's still off somewhere else, not even paying attention to what you're doing anymore, because you're used to it, after a while. And that's where you have to have those like key moments where you're like, now stop and just really pay attention. Just in case you've decided you're doing this on rote and your mind is actually thinking about that email you're going to send.
Happens in meditation as well, when you think you're doing it right and suddenly you're like, oh, now I'm thinking. So.
Yeah, definitely. Anyway, so is there anything else you wanted to cover before we get off? Because I was hoping to finish by 4:30.
Briefly, quickly. When you said you were telling your corporate class about it the other day, and you said, I'm doing a podcast with my friend, I mean student, and I thought, all right, I haven't made it into the friend category yet, but that's fine.
Well, I did actually say friend, student, comedian, someone I know from another class. I kind of like fumbled myself a little bit. But I'll tell you this though, on the last couple classes I've had, I've done a very good job selling our podcast.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, that's cool. I don't know if we're friends yet or not, but that's...
Sure, we can be friends.
It's weird, isn't it? You don't ask people that, do you? You don't go, are we friends yet?
Well, maybe when you get past about 6, you don't really say, will you be my friend now, please?
Apart from when you're literally asking people on Facebook that.
Will you be my friend? And by friend, I mean acquaintance, because I only just met you.
We don't have to commit to being friends yet if you don't want, but...
I think we're friends now.
That's nice. I don't make many new friends because I think lots of people have a very... I only know through so many people speaking to me like months after I first met them saying, actually, it turns out you're all right.
Yeah.
I think, oh, God, I must be so bad at first impressions. I think so that's why I don't make many friends, because people think, oh, he's weird and doesn't want to talk to me. So, no.
I find that I'm really friendly, but people are busy. Maybe that's because of the nature of where I meet people. Like usually as a teacher, I'm in a studio or something. And people always seem to be really busy. They always want to do stuff and leave. And I'm like, I feel like a lost puppy. Can I come with? You going out to eat? Well, I've got nothing to do for the rest of the day. And then it's like, oh, that's a bit weird, isn't it, Kayla? Don't do that. So then I don't. And then it's like, oh, I don't really have any friends because,
I don't know. I sort of talk about not having many friends, but I don't actually always like getting close to people either.
Well, I always feel like you can't be authentic. So if you have too many friends, you can't be an authentic friend to every single one of them. So you end up either not being a very good friend or only having acquaintances or something. I don't know. So I don't really have any friends. So no, I've got one friend.
Who?
You.
Oh, yeah.
God, never mind.
Wasn't that nice? Just give you a few seconds more to wipe the tears from your eyes there, or maybe you're vomiting into something, I don't know. Thanks for listening, hope you enjoyed the show. If you did, please do subscribe and give us a good review on iTunes or Apple Podcasts. Go on, thought I'd be a bit more direct about it this week, because usually you're like, oh no, if you don't mind, maybe you can do this, and then everyone listening thinks, someone else will do that. But no, this time I'm talking to you, alright? Obviously, if you don't enjoy the show, I would encourage you not to do either of those things. But if you do, then that's very nice. I mean, do what you want, obviously, but, these sorts of things are really helpful. Hence the awkward request, Next time, we're talking about my shoulder aching, how many times a week you should be doing yoga, and also I managed to shoehorn 2 jokes about Greek mythology, and I would have done on stage in the last year if I was allowed to perform, but I haven't really been allowed to do much of that, so bully for me. The music is Dr. Turtle, Kachingless Wonder, it's licensed under Creative Commons, blah 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 blah. Bye now.